what remote companies do excessively well that most typical co-located environments don't is documentation. Your people will need as much visibility into their colleagues' work as they would have had previously in an office environment where they could just meet up, listen in, chat over lunch, have a beer, etc. If you don't get this right, it results in knowledge leak and knowledge loss, and information silos will definitely form where you create gaps in knowledge, it results in sort of lack of trust developing and team members being unable to actually do their work. The big step here and the big challenge is changing from a speak first to a write first mentality and environment. So we're used to, picking up the phone or leaning across the room, but actually writing first and thinking about this beforehand is a different capability that as an organization we now have to learn. So the good documentation is stronger, more informed, more trusting, and more connected teams. But the big question I get asked regularly is, how do we make sure documents do not go to the graveyard of documents? It sort of goes to the Google graveyard, Google folders graveyard. So you need to decide which platform you're going to use. So whether it's Notion, GitLab, Atlassian, Confluence, et cetera. But there has to be an underlying platform for your documentation. And once you've decided that, you need to give your documentation a structure. So often what happens is somebody writes something and it just goes into a Google folder and nobody looks at it again. But if every document has an owner, then there is one person who's ultimately responsible for that document. It's never owned by everybody and it's never owned by no one in particular. So you now have an owner of the document. You have an audience. Is it internal? Is it external? Is it internal project? Is it for the whole web? There is a cadence of updates. What is the workflow for updating and who is it? And how long is this document lived and maintained? So if you give your documentation the structure with an owner, then you're able to create an environment a document environment where the document lives and the document stays alive. So GitLab, who I mentioned earlier, their company manual is 7,100 pages if you were to print it out. They see document as a critical competitive advantage, and it's a core value of the company. You can view their documents online, and I recommend you look at GitLab and Hotjar and the other document manuals out there to view what these companies are doing.